All right. Good morning, everybody. Good afternoon to the other people in other parts of the country that will tune into this. This is going to be a very special and important episode for me. I'm joined by an individual who fronts a band that's been in my life for 20 plus years with the music that they've released. Always super consistent output, even the time between when they put stuff out. Paul McCoy, 12 Stones, today's guest. Super thrilled you're here, man. How are you doing?
I'm doing wonderful, man. I just got my day started the right way today. So I woke up on the right side of the bed and, I'm here. Happy to be here.
Yeah, thank you for coming on. Like I said, off air. I got quite a bit of stuff written in here. Probably not going to cover all of it, just so we're not going to be here for 3 hours.
Right on.
But just notes so we can reference and just have it flow. Man, I guess let's just go ahead and start with kind of looking at the history for 12 Stones for people that might not know exactly how that came about. And just kind of, you can consolidate it, you can summarize it if you want to. I want to hear it from your mouth. And how did it all start for you guys?
Sure. We actually have I believe to be a fairly unique origin story. I graduated high school in the year 2000. And shortly after that, I started frequenting a local music store in the town of Mandeville, Louisiana. And at the time, a couple of the guys that ended up being in the band worked at that music shop. And I was just a broke kid from around the way that wanted to go and play with all the shiny new guitars and toys and stuff. So I started going in there quite a bit and playing on some of the instruments and just fiddling around with some stuff. And Eric Weaver, our lead guitar player, was working there at the time. And he came up to me and was like, "That sounds pretty cool. What is that?" I'm like, "I don't know. I'm just messing around." And he got a guitar and started kind of doing that. And then our very first drummer, Pat Quave, he also, I believe, was a manager of the store at the time. And he came over and then started, putting some drums to some stuff. And then we got permission to stay after the music store closed, and that became our rehearsal spot. And then one day, Kevin Darr, the bass player, comes walking in. "Y'all sell bass strings?" And we're like, "Oh, you play bass? That's kind of cool." So none of us were really friends. We didn't know each other before. We just kind of started jamming, and the music kind of brought us together, as odd as that starts. And we decided we wanted to. We practiced 3 times a week for like 6 months. We never did a show, and then we decided we wanted to try to play out live. So there's a local band in the area called Ground Fault. And they were awesome enough to let us come and open up for them for a few shows. And we just came up with the name 12 Stones. We all picked names and put them in a hat. And that's the one that came out of the draw, which is a good thing because I can't even imagine what would have happened if we would have gone with some of the other names. We just chose. I can't even remember half of them. I know one of them was like Pit with 2 T's. There were some wild ones. And so when 12 Stones got picked, we were like, it's not terrible. We just need a name to go play these handful of shows.
Yeah, right.
We never thought we would be recording an album or having an interview 24 years later. So 12 Stones, everyone's like, it's got this deep meaning. And I'm like, it does. But we chose the name out of a hat and started jamming together. And we did, I think, 12 shows. Live, and then we started getting attention from record labels thanks to our manager Kenny Vest, and and the rest is kind of history. We just a couple of young dudes that love music that ran into each other and right place, right time, and everything just kind of worked out for us in the best of ways. We're very lucky to still be around, to ever get a start. A lot of that goes out to the lovely Diana Meltzer. She was one of the owners of Wind Up Records. The first band she ever discovered was a little band called Creed. So,
Wow, really?
yeah. So, she has a
That's pretty big.
pretty stellar track record. She found Creed,
Yeah.
Finger 11, Drowning Pool, Seether. She just has an ear.
All incredible bands. I have to agree with you there. Like you guys, and then the ones he just named off, she definitely has an ear.
Yeah, she came through in the clutch. She's like a second mom to me. She's just an awesome human being. So we owe a lot to her, and we just happened to be right place, right time, and had the right people believing in us at the right time.
Yeah, I mean that's really crazy, man. You guys just kind of coinciding and at one point, at some point or another, there, and then I was aware of the time frame it took between when you formed and the shows that were played up until when you did that showcase, or whatever it was called. A lot of bands, it takes them a lot longer for that to happen. So I couldn't agree more. It's just like a sequence of events of like right place, right time, right people hearing or seeing, or the word of mouth kind of thing. Because maybe about a year or so it was until you guys were signed, right?
Yeah, it was very quick. Like I said, we didn't do anything publicly for about 6 months. We just worked on our craft and tried to perfect the handful of songs we did have. And so once we felt like we were ready to get out and try to put it out there live, we just took a swing at it. And again, there's some great bands in the area that helped us get footing and gave us an opportunity to share the stage with them. And we're obviously eternally grateful. Still a big, huge supporter of local bands. I always say, like, every band's a local band somewhere, so it doesn't matter
definitely
your status or what you feel, if you've made it or not made it. Like, we all have a hometown, and we all need to try to help ourselves and help each other.
That is amazing mentality about it. I couldn't agree more. That's how I treat my podcast and the podcasting community. Like, I've met some really awesome people doing this, and they support each other, that we help each other out, because you should, a hand to help someone up, or a shoulder, for crying on, or an ear for listening, and just think, in general, just looking out. So, I mean, that's really awesome to have that kind of community, and 100%, every band is a hometown band. They all have a hometown. They all came from somewhere. So, and talking about when you guys went and you did that showcase and you were signed, when you got that news and you started that writing for the self-titled, for you guys, what were some of the things that were going through your head, you particularly, since I'm talking with you, when you went in to start writing this record?
Well, the songs we worked on for the first record, we were lucky enough to where in that 6-month span while we were working on our craft, those songs all kind of came out pretty quickly. The first song that got recognition for us from record labels was The Way I Feel. And that's a song that, like, I was just having a bad day. I was a 19, 18-year-old angsty teenager that thought I actually had problems at that time in life, and first world problems and stuff like that. And I just got tired of being angry all the time and stuff. So I just played a guitar part that I liked. And then when I showed it to the rest of the guys, obviously I try to write as much as I can in my own time, but I always was able to bring my ideas to the band and then make them what I heard in my head. So I would go to Eric and be like, hey, I have this riff. And he's like, I know what you're trying to do. You want to do this. And I'm like, yeah, that's it. So that was kind of how that process worked for us, was to get in, take a bunch of foundational ideas and as a group, as a unit, make them our own. Because every one of us in the band comes from a different background musically, of what we were into, what we were listening to, like, and they're all pretty sparse. So all of that coming together takes it and makes it what our sound became after that time. So, and again, we didn't know what we were doing. We weren't any more talented than anyone up the street. We were just right place, right time, and had the right backing and the right attitude, I think. once we started getting some attention, we decided like, all right, let's take this seriously. Let's see what we can do. And it's been a wild ride.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, there's a lot of stuff happened for you guys that seemed kind of quick starting out. And when I discovered you guys, or I was showing you guys actually, I was at a friend's house, a best friend of mine at the time's house, and his dad had showed me a lot of bands. Like he introduced me to Seven Dust, he introduced me to Revis, he
Nice.
introduced me to a band called Injected, Finger 11, like you mentioned. And then one day, Cold too, by the way.
Nice.
And then I love Cold. And then one day I walk in and he had your band playing on his sound system in the front room, and I was like, oh, that's kind of like a kind of hard rock, kind of grungy, kind of sounding, band there, and I really liked it. And it was your voice particularly that was catching my ear and kind of give me I need to hear more of this. And I want to say it actually might have been the way I feel that he was playing at the time on there. And so I said, hey, Rich, who is that? And he goes, oh, this is a band called 12 Stones. Do you know who they are? I'm like, no, I don't. He goes, I could get you a copy. And I go, yes, please.
Nice. Very cool.
Yeah. And so I spent like that entire school year just listening to that record over and over and over again, because before I'd come to where I'm based now, we moved around a lot. There's some home problems. My mom and my brothers and I getting away from our dad at the time. He's just an ugly, ugly, angry person. And so the album, your self-titled album, was one of those albums that I took along with Linkin Park's Hybrid Theory obviously helped me a lot too. But
great record.
Where you were coming from on a lot of those songs, I felt like I related to it. You know how people are, they interpret song meanings their own ways and like kind of imagine what it could be about and then apply it to their situation, right? And so I was doing a lot of that with your self-titled. Like The Way I Feel was like one that I would put on repeat over and over and over again. I would get to study hall at school, put that CD in my CD player and just hit that repeat button on that song itself and just listen to it again and again and again and again. So I owe a lot to that record as far as kind of getting me through and kind of sorting through a lot of that mental health stuff that I was getting, the traumas and all that. So I know you've gotten this from people, and I just want to say some of the same, that it truly is a record that does have a lot of meaning and importance to a lot of people, me especially. So I just want to say thank you for that record, because it's still in my rotation. Like I still listen to it. And then if you don't mind, I actually wanted to hit on a couple of the songs off of that. You mentioned The Way I Feel and where your headspace was with that. I want to ask you about Broken as well, because that was another really big song off of that record and one that I also listened to a lot. What was the headspace at the time that you wrote that, and what it was supposed to or meant to kind of help you work out in your mind?
For me, that was a song that actually Kevin Darr wrote the clean guitar parts to that. Really cool little riff. And when we first started playing that song live, it naturally kind of came its way. But at that time in life, like I grew up in a church with my family,
right?
And I had a lot of questions about organized religion and all these things, and I kind of felt lost just in general, and I didn't know what I knew. All I knew growing up was like, when you're feeling at your edge, you turn to the Lord and all this. And it's one of those things where like,
right,
I never truly felt the presence that I thought should be associated with it. Like we went to church twice a week. My family still goes. But I had a lot of issues with like the business of the church rather than the people. I respect the people and the personalities, but I was having a lot of issues with religion. And at that point, that the song was like, I know I need you now. It was kind of like, all right, I'm here. I'm at my end. I'm broken. And so it was kind of like a plea to like almost like show yourself like I feel like I'm doing the things I need to do. Where are you? I'm here for it. So I mean a lot of it, and that's kind of the irony of a lot of people considering us a Christian band, because all of our songs have positive messages, and it's all about overcoming adversity, whether it be at home and at work, just everyday life, everyday real situations. And, at that time of my life, I was struggling with the principles of organized religion. So it's kind of like, all right, well, I'm here. And so a lot of our songs say, I know I need you, Lord, or it says, I pray or something. And immediately people are like, they don't curse, they have positive message, and they say Lord. They're a Christian band automatically. And still to this day, people will see something and they'll be like, are you a Christian band? I'm like, you only hire Christian plumbers to come fix your thing?
That's a good point.
So do you get something out of the music? Because it's like, I feel like religion and that is a personal thing. It's like everybody today. It's like, well, who did you vote for? I'm not going to listen to you, depending on who you voted for or where you stand on certain things. It's like, okay, but did you hear all the stuff I said? Like all the stuff I've already said. Like I'm open to let you draw your conclusions about how the music helps or doesn't help you. But if your only reaction is like, you either believe the way I believe or I'm not going to support you. And it's like, okay, well, that's not very Christian either. So it was always our drummer for the longest time is an atheist. So it's like, he's being categorized as a drummer for a Christian band. And it's not my business.
Yeah.
It's not my business to go talk about everybody's business. Like, again, I think it's a personal relationship. And so I've steered away from those type of interactions and questions a lot, just because people are going to believe what they want. And, again, with a lot of our songs, I like that people draw their own meanings from the songs. Like what one song means to you may be totally different than what I technically wrote it about. And that could be totally different from what somebody else hears in the song. So I heard Eddie Vedder a long time ago say, someone asked him what a song was about, and he said, well, whatever it's about to you. And that's something I stuck with me through the years. Like, some people hear our music and get religious undertones, and some people hear it and they're just like, man, he went through a bad breakup, or that's about somebody else, or that. And so I love that. If our music in any way helps somebody in a positive way, then I feel like that's the goal.
Yeah, 100% agree with you. It's the weight and importance that people put on just people in general, as far as like their beliefs and just wanting to know, and if it's not what they think, kind of turn their back on you, kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I've always had a really big problem with that too, and I actually share some of your sentiments or some of your at the time feelings about church and the organized whole religion kind of thing. I struggle with that even today, because and my older brother, when I said this on Facebook, this is about maybe 2012 or so, I said that I was renouncing the church, not God, not Christ or anything, but the church, because I wasn't feeling comfortable with what I was seeing in it, with what I was hearing, and just how I just felt just so incredibly crushed by like this weight of judgment when I would walk in there, and like have a first question be out of like their mouth being, do you know the Lord, son? Or like a band shirt I'm wearing, like I have a Slipknot shirt on right now. It just stuff like that, and just like that outside appearance, and that's the first thing that they want to latch on, and the first thing they want to try and change. And so I just kind of stepped back from it, but I didn't close my heart to God and Christ, So, and my older brother had a pretty big problem with that, and he talked to me, and I tried to help him understand where I was coming from. Like, look, I'm not turned to atheism or anything like that. It's just I don't want to be inside a building where I feel like they're just out to they want to shape me to be exactly what they are. And I believe in being an individual.
Right. That's 100% what I'm about. Is find out what makes you happy. Find out what makes you tick. What makes you want to get up out of bed every day. Part of my struggles with the church early on was I had a really close friend of mine's mom in church during Sunday church service look at me because of all the tattoos, and she said, "You're going to hell," just straight out with it. And I was like, "What?" I said, "So because I'm covered in tattoos, but you're in your Sunday best, we're not the same. I'm banished to the fiery pits forever because I chose to decorate my arms. But I'm here. We're still in the same building. We're not considered to be, the same. But that stuck with me. And then, a lot of people within the church that had power or whatever abused it, and it just really turned me off from the business of it. I think it's an individual thing, and I'm happy with where I'm at in life. I'm happy with where I'm at as far as my stance on things, and I try to be as transparent and real with people as possible. But
that's the important thing, man. 100% the important thing. And you mentioned something. I saw a video. I think it was actually this week that just ended of this guy. I think he's either a pastor or somebody that was out on the street talking to people and just ministering and stuff. And he had tattoos on his arms, like you were talking about with yourself. And they actually had someone approach them and mention that. And he goes, well, God judges the heart, And when I heard that, I'm like, that's exactly what I've been trying to tell people for so long. Like, right. if your heart's good and I get that impression from you, or I feel that from you, I really don't care what you do in life. I want a good person with a good heart. That's all I care about. I'm not going to try and change you.
Right.
Yeah.
Just be the best version of yourself. If you're trying to be a better person every day, try to do something nice for some people.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like that's good. That's at the root of it all. Just be a good person. Try to be a better person. And then if we can do that, then I think that's a successful human being, and I see so much, especially around, the elections and things like this. It's like people's true colors come out, and it's like, I thought we were people. I thought we were all in this together. Like, man, I'm not ever going to just shun somebody for the way something they believe. There's no physically possible way everyone in the world is ever going to agree on everything. It's impossible. We can't get everybody to agree on one thing. So we just have to learn to just roll with it. It is what it is. The world's going to keep spinning, whether you're mad or not, whether you're in your feelings or not. The world continues to spin, and until it doesn't,
always will continue to spin. And it's everyday life with that stuff, and it's kind of one of those things where I kind of put on blinders sometime to it, just so I could focus on myself, my family. So before we move on from the self-titled, I want to just ask, I like hearing from bands what sort of pressures you might have felt since you were signed to a really big label with this album, for like any kind of the expectations, or were they kind of just like, we love you guys, we love your image, we love your sound, we want you to put out an album, and then they just kind of put their hands up and said, you be you, and let producer do his magic and stuff, and let you guys do what you do? Or was it kind of one of those things with most bands that are new, they get signed and it's their first album, where they said, okay, try and do this because this is what's popular sound wise currently, and this is what kind of like dress they like? Was any of that met with you guys when you went in to do the album?
So initially we ended up showcasing for like, I want to say 7 or 8 different record labels. Some of them passed on us, and we were too young. We weren't experienced in all those things, because we were very young. Kevin was 18. I believe I was 19. Eric was 20. None of us were old enough to even be in half the places we were playing. And so a lot of the record labels did. I think Warner Brothers was one that wanted to do a developmental deal. They had just put out Linkin Park not long before. So their A&R guy approached us and said, hey, we did this with Linkin Park. We signed them, but then we did a developmental where we just worked on them and helped them work on their craft until they were ready to be. And then obviously Hybrid Theory came out and changed the world of rock and roll in that time frame. But we didn't want to do that. We were just kind of like, I think we want to go now. Like, I'm one of those people, I put the pro in procrastination. So if it's not right now, it might not be right, So for me, we had some people pass on us, and we passed on a couple, and then wind up, Diana wouldn't take no for an answer from the record label or from us. She liked what she liked, because even Wind Up, once they saw us, they didn't want to invest. They didn't want to sign us. They thought we were too young, didn't have all the songs yet. And Diana said, "You're all idiots. We're signing 12 Stones." And we met her, and that changed everything from us. She literally was just such a genuine human being. I don't think she has the ability to tell a lie. From thought to mouth, there's no filter. So you're gonna get what you're gonna get when you're talking with her. Anyone that's ever met Diana knows what I'm saying right now. She is just as straightforward as they come, and when she loves you, there's no turning that off. So with her, she allowed us to be ourselves. They didn't put any pressure on us. Obviously, when we went to shoot music videos and stuff, they had wardrobe and stuff. So we had things we could pick from. But I mean, at one point, I had bleached blonde hair. I was the
I remember.
Kevin had at one point, Kevin had bright red hair that turned pink.
Yeah.
Rick had blue. We were like red, white, and blue. It was the weirdest thing ever, but that was the times, you know. And no one said anything. No one made us feel awkward or like weird about it. So yeah, Diana is the reason that we would just go in the studio. And we were so young that when we went to record the album, I thought that everybody that sang vocals on the album had to do this. I thought like We Are the World, like this was part of it. So like my dad came out with a buddy of his and brought the big on the shoulder camcorder and videoed some of us recording that record. And I found the tape a few years back, and I could not stop laughing at myself. I was there with my country drawl, and I was just "We Are the World" in it. And looking back now, I'm just like, wow, what a goofy boy. But yeah, man, I think we were met with some of that adversity. We were met with some of the "you're not ready." You know, we can work on this. We can make this with this. And Diana was like, "Nah, go do it." And so they put us up in LA to work with the very talented Jay Baumgardner. We had Dave Fortman from Ugly Kid Joe, who went on to produce Simple Plan, Slipknot,
incredible work,
Evanescence, you know. And he got to co-produce us because he did our demo that helped us get signed. And then we went and did the second record with Dave, and we even went back and did the Picture Perfect album with Dave down the road. So yeah, they having the right team, and they allowed us to be ourselves because it was okay that we didn't know what we were doing. We didn't have a clue. So and it was okay. We learned as we went. We made some mistakes, and we made some great headway for a bunch of young kids that I'd never been further west than Texas when we got our record deal. So going out to LA for 3 months to make a record and living across the hall from Nick Cannon was
wow.
We were like
pretty surreal.
Yeah, we got a 4-story condo right outside of Barham Avenue in Los Angeles. And yeah, it was like we were just in such a culture shock, you know. None of us came from money. None of us were like well-to-do. We were just a bunch of broke young kids, but we were hungry. And you know, it didn't matter what band we were playing with. We wanted to learn from the experience and outshine, you know, as much as possible.
Yeah, man, that's an incredible insight to the process of what you guys experienced with that first album. Because as far as like, you know, debut albums go, I've always felt that it was an album that, for as young as you guys were and as inexperienced you say that you guys were, whether with songwriting, writing lyrics, or just playing in general, it still sounds like such, to me, a cohesive and just well thought out and well put together record for a first time venture, you know?
Thank you.
And I feel like that's what Diana saw and what she heard with you guys, and why she was so adamant about getting you guys signed, because she knew that was there.
Yeah.
So it's amazing to have someone like that in your corner, because look what came from it.
For sure. I mean, we were fortunate enough we were in between drummers at the time for the first record. So we had Josh Freese play on our record. And I'm
said Josh Freese?
Yeah. He played drums on the first record. And he did 2 takes of each song. And the second take was just in case he needed a backup. He was doing the running man. Like, he showed up and we were just like, what? Because that was Perfect Circle, and it was now Foo Fighters, and he's been in every band. But honestly, it's funny. I saw an interview with him not long ago with Rick Beato, and he was talking about how many albums he played on from that time frame. He doesn't because when he plays drums, we're just using scratch tracks and stuff like
Mhm.
that. So he doesn't ever hear the finished product until he recognizes one of his fills. He's like, oh, that's me. So
Yeah.
that was kind of the experience for him there. He came in, he was there a few days. He did each song twice, and it was no sweat. Didn't break a sweat. He just played the grooves, and we were just standing there, jaw on the floor. And yeah, and so it's cool to know that like he played on so many albums during that time frame. But we can always say our first album featured Josh Freese on drums.
I didn't know that about the record, to tell you the truth. That's really cool. He's a drummer that I've always loved. I follow him with everything he does. That's like that even like puts the album up there even further for me, just because
Yeah.
knowing that I didn't know that.
Yep.
That's really cool, dude. Wow. Incredible guy, that guy. So switching gears, we could talk about this briefly because I don't want to take up too much of the time. Oh, I was wondering when he would show up. So before I get to what I was about to say, I have a friend who I interviewed on here recently last week, who has a pretty cool story about 12 Stones and his wife. And he just posted it. It might not. Okay, so he didn't post the thing, but he says it's always interesting to hear about the journey. I remember when I was a kid, I thought being a successful band was just like you got discovered, then all the work was done. Easy peasy. I remember when I first realized that it actually takes a ton of work.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah. Since you're in here, Jake, you could always drop in that story with you and the wife with 12 Stones if you would like, and I'll post that up there for Paul to see. I think he'd like hearing that.
For sure.
And until that, you probably saw this coming. I've always wanted to ask this because I didn't know I'd be sitting across from Paul McCoy on a laptop, being able to ask these questions, in 2024. But Bring Me to Life with Evanescence. As I know it, Mike from Linkin Park passed on that, right?
From my understanding, a lot of people passed on it. I know Josie from Saliva says he passed on it.
Okay.
And so for me, just to get into the brass tacks of it all, we were signed on the same record label. Evanescence was on Wind Up. We had already put out our first album. We were getting ready to make the second album. So we were all in New York at Wind Up Records in the office with at the time, the president of the label, and they were showing us the demo version of Bring Me to Life. And I was a big fan of Amy's voice. I love My Immortal. Just such a operatic.
He's got power.
Just very clean, nice vocals. And they were showing us, and then they showed us this version of Bring Me to Life that had like whoever was producing it did like a mimic little rappy part over it. And they were like, we're going to try to get Mike Shinoda. We're trying to get Josie. We're trying to get Jacoby. Like all the guys that were, I mean, this is 2002 or so.
Right.
So the rap rock is running the rock world at that point. Like all those bands that had the hip hop influence. So it was a natural fit in Wind Up's mind to go get one of those big name guys. To my knowledge, nobody wanted to take it. And I never knew that the band Evanescence was against the part in general until I was in Romania shooting the video with them, and comments were made. And I was like, what? Like,
oh,
so I thought like, hey man, backing it up a little bit. When we were in the office, they showed us the version and they told us all these popular guys that they were trying to get to do the song. And I said, jokingly, I was like, well, man, if you can't find anybody famous to do it, I'll do it. And we just laughed, and it was like that. And then a couple of weeks later, I was back home. We were loading up the tour bus in Covington, Louisiana. We were going to start our tour with Seven Dust the next day in Texas. And I got a phone call, and it was the label, and they said, hey, man, were you serious about wanting to do that song? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. Like, I love the process of making music. I love how other people write songs as being different than how I write songs. So I just I'm a super nerd when it comes to who recorded it, where were you? Like I read the pamphlet of every album cover to cover. And so I was honored. I was like, yeah, of course I would. All of this happened while I don't know that there's a battle between the label and the band for this part. I think that the part was already part of it, and they just couldn't find anybody to do it. So I was like, I got my shot, and I went and I took it. And then as time goes on, I find out all the background information that the band didn't want the part in the song at all, and it wasn't an attack on me, but it was they felt that their artistic integrity was being questioned or trampled on. And then it turned into like a masculinity thing. It's like, oh, you just can't let a female artist be. And I'm like, no. Like, I have a daughter, I have 2 little sisters. Like, I'm not that at all. Like,
yeah.
Had I known the reality of the situation, I might have passed, and obviously that would have been very detrimental to my future. But I don't want to ever come across as someone that's like trying to weasel my way into it.
Right.
Somebody else's craft, you know? So, Amy and I have talked even fairly recently, a few months ago. She reached out, and, you know, we had that talk, and she was like, I didn't understand that it was making you look negative when we were talking about the song and the part. And I'm like, it's okay. I was never mad at you guys. I felt like I instantly became, you know, enemy number one with all the Evanescence fans. And I'm like, I didn't know, man. I promise you, I didn't know. Like, it wasn't anything other than somebody asked me if I wanted to do something, and I was like, yeah, that would be awesome. So everything's good. You know, a lot of the negative energy from that is water under the bridge, and I'm very grateful for the opportunity, and I'm very grateful that Amy is a great person and has reached out, and I've done the song with them several times live, and it's cool. It's definitely something that'll always be a huge part of who I am as a musician, and I'm forever grateful for that. You know, I was able to win a Grammy in 2003, so you know, everywhere I go, if people don't know 12 Stones, I'm like the other night I went to a show and some girl next to me was trying to sing that song. I was in line to buy a t-shirt from a band, and the girl next to me was trying to sing Bring Me to Life to one of the band guys to show how good she could sing. And I was just smiling. I was like, you know, it's funny because I was like, is that you singing on that? She's like, yeah. I was like, cool, that's cool. And then you know, but it's just funny because I'm standing there listening to her audition on a Amy Lee on the song I was on. And it's kind of, I've been in the gym before, and it's come on at Planet Fitness, and I was shake my head. You know, it's kind of funny because like I'm here, you know, I'm over here.
That's a pretty cool insight into how that all came together. And I was aware of the pushback from the band about not wanting that part in there. And all these years later, I feel like if it wasn't in there, it just wouldn't be the same song. And I've always tried to imagine what it would have sounded like without it in there. And then another thing is, with all the other people that they had in mind that passed, you know, like Josie, Mike, or and then Jacoby, all super great, you know, musicians, great. You know, they do the rap part really well. But in my head, with knowing how all those voices sound, I still think that you were the person to go with, the person that was right for the part. You know, it's an iconic song, and I have, sorry, I almost choked on my saliva. Many times where I would sit in my room and do your part in that song and just butcher it. I'm no rapper, you know.
I'm not either. That's the funny thing. Everyone's like, you know, the rap guy. I'm like, I'm not. Name one other song that I've even spoken fast on. I don't. It makes me laugh because I'm like, I didn't write the part. It was written. So I just performed what was put in front of me. And again, I did that without knowing that there was all this animus between the business and the band. And I'm like, I'm just the little country kid stuck in the middle, and I'm not trying to upset anybody. I'm just honored to even be asked, you know. So looking back, you know, it's funny now that people are like, you know, that Wake Me Up, that rapper. And I'm like, dude, I'm not a rapper. I stumble over my words just trying to have a conversation half the time. I definitely am not spitting hot fire. I'm not spitting bars. I promise.
You are not MC McCoy.
No, MC Coy. That would be my MC. That'd be my handle.
So my buddy Jake posted up his little thing that he wanted to tell you. He says, I actually got a fun little story for you guys about Paul. So my wife and I got married when we were 19 or 20. We actually figured out that we were standing right next to each other when we were about 13 or 14 because of a story I have about a 12 Stones concert. So 12 Stones played a show in Lubbock, Texas in 2004, he thinks. It was a show called C Spot Rock. I can't remember the whole lineup, but I remember 12 Stones and Pillar. The crowd was absolutely lame, apparently. Just saying there, a bunch of youth groups, and it looks like it cut off there, so I don't know what else he said about it, but the gist of it is they were standing right next to each other, if I could recall right, and they were at a 12 Stones concert, and so they kind of met there, but
Right.
didn't, like, is how I think I understand it. I'm sorry, Jake, if that's not completely accurate. You could always put another comment in there with the rest of that, but I thought that was pretty neat. And I said, hey, well, come in and post that so I can share it with Paul. I'm sure he'd love to hear it.
Yeah, that's awesome. So we did do the C Spot Rock tour. We headlined that. The other bands on the bill, it was Skillet, Pillar, Big Dismal, which is another wind-up band. Their album, they just put out a new single. Check them out.
I did not know that.
Yeah, Big Dismal. They have a new song. I can't remember the name. I know it's got Heart in it. But anyway, great dudes, great band. It was us, Skillet, Pillar, Big Dismal, and the Christian rap group Grits. And
I know them.
yeah, it was a really cool tour that we did. It was some weird shows. That was before Skillet blew up to what they are today. And so it was very weird down the road that we headlined a tour that Skillet was on. Because again, we were just a bunch of goofy kids. And so, we get the opportunities and we take them. And I think it was fairly well received on that, but we don't do like the altar calls and the raising of the hands at our show. So with it being a predominantly Christian band lineup, and then we were headlining, it was kind of, we had to really be mindful of how we operated at each show, instead of our normal, hoopla.
Yeah. He posted the rest. He says they didn't actually meet. He said that him and his buddy were there, the only ones that were trying to headbang. And he said that you pointed them out and said, these guys know what's up.
That's what I'm talking about. See, you got to create your own power. You got to create your own crowd. That's the beautiful part about it. Don't worry about what everybody else is doing or what they think about it. Get out there and bang your head. That's the way it should be.
Yeah. Have a good time.
Much love, Jake. Thank you, man. Appreciate that.
Yeah. He's a cool guy. So switching gears, I want to touch on a little bit of Potter's Field. So a lot of people like to talk about growth between the first album and then your sophomore. And they always want to put that stigma on, like whether it's going to be a sophomore flop or a sophomore hit, right? In my opinion, I think that you guys put out an album for your second release that was right toe-to-toe with the first. I don't want to say that it was better or not as good, because it was just a record that I feel like was extremely solid all the way through, just like the first. And I've always really loved the heck out of Bitter. It's still a song that I cannot stop listening to. And when it gets to that song on the album, I have to just restart it and keep restarting it.
Right on.
It's kind of the way you sing the chorus and just in general, the way you sing through the song. It's just got this really cool tone and this really cool just vocal delivery. You've probably heard people say that it's a heavier record as opposed to your first, like maybe a little more guitar driven. I think the tuning's a little bit different, correct, on the guitars on that record?
I believe we did more drop tuning on the second record.
Yeah.
Than we did on the first. I know Broken's in standard, and a few songs on the first record are in standard tuning, but most of that from the second record on, we started going to the drop C for most stuff.
Right. What was the goal going in with, at the time, you probably didn't have it called Potter's Field when you were going in, but what was for the band, the ultimate end game for the second record? Like, as far as like how you want to have your sound developed, or kind of stay sort of the same, or just subject matter of it, like the songs and stuff? Because just like the first one, there's a lot of songs on there I feel like talk about just personal struggles,
Yeah.
Loss, losing loved ones, or just like observational things about your surrounding world and stuff. So what was Potter's Field's process like when you went to record it?
For us, Potter's Field, which is to this date, as biased as it is, that's my favorite 12 Stones record. I feel like that was when we were really found our stride. We really figured out who we were. That was the first album that we had Aaron Gaynor playing drums on, who's one of the most amazing musicians ever. Like I got chills and thrilled every night getting to share the stage with him and watch him beat the mess out of those drums. That was the first one we got to really capture his energy, and he's got a great voice as well. So he did a lot of the high background vocals on that record. And for us, and at least for me, the goal was to make a record that we could play live and sound like the record.
Mm-hmm.
We wanted to have the guitars dirty. We wanted to have it loud, and we wanted to be able to go out and deliver these songs so that you could go from your headphones right into the venue and be like, okay, this is 12 Stones. This is what it is. So for me, it was about capturing that live energy. And again, all of our songs, at least to me, are about overcoming some type of adversity and just keeping your head up and figuring out who you are as a person, So a lot of those songs are, the scary thing about that record is most people, I didn't find this out until it was time when the label said, hey, we're ready for y'all to start working on the second record. We were still heavily touring. We were on the road. Mm-hmm. And so the problem that a lot of bands run into is you have your whole life to write the first record, and you got about 6 months to beat it.
Yeah.
So, and you got to beat it while you're signing autographs, playing shows, and driving overnight. And like your mind's not in the creative process of it. So that was the scariest thing ever, was like, we got to come out swinging. We got to come out and like really try to establish our place,
right,
and show people who we really are and who we've become. The first record, we were so young and inexperienced. I go back and listen now, and there's some things I would done a little bit differently had I had the experience. Hindsight's 2020. But on that second record, I feel like we delivered what we wanted to deliver, and that was a record that Wind Up kind of went hands off on. They were like, man, y'all did the first record, thing. Go do your thing. And we got to record in our hometown here in Mandeville. And we got to work with Dave Fortman. So it was nice being able to sleep in our own bed and be around friends and family, and then go to work. And then that made it a lot easier to get up and get in the studio and really hammer it down. So, yeah, for me, that was the whole goal, was just to really capture the energy that we were trying to bring to the live stage. We were always on tour with bands like Seven Dust, who just destroy everyone in their path.
They're incredible.
They're one of the best. And I remember when we did a tour with them, a couple of the guys, Lejean especially, would be side stage while we played. And then when we got done, they would congratulate us on a good show. And then I'd be like, man, I was just wondering about this. And then I always remember Lejean saying, like, well, look, remember this, you move around a lot. So if you're running all the way over where Eric's at, he needs to cover for you and go to the middle. Everybody always needs to have a straight on point of vision. You can't put everybody on one side, and
right. Yeah.
People paid good money to be in the front. And if you spend the whole show over there and there's nobody, I was like, hold on, slow down. I'm like, so we say it was the Seven Dust boot camp. I'm not even sure if they know that, but they were huge.
If I could comment on that real quick about Seven Dust and Lejean, I've only ever heard that that's 100% how they always are when they go out with bands. They're super just supportive. They're all about like basically mentoring in a sense, like with because I've only ever heard that. And so when I finally got to see them live earlier in the year, they were on the Static X run with them, all the runs that they've done recently, actually. And everything that I'd ever heard about Seven Dust ended up being 100% true. Like their stage presence, how they interact with the crowd. It's the best live show that I have personally seen.
They're
you know,
fantastic.
as far as just like the production of it, their professionalism, you know, their clarity and just how they interact. It's 100%. It's impressive. It really leaves a lasting impression on you. So it's cool that you have the same experience when you guys did some shows with them, and just Lejean just wanting to be like your buddy and just like, hey, try this, try this. So yeah, I mean, I hear that all over the place.
I just feel like they're a band's band. They're an artist.
Yeah,
You know, they want for the better of the community.
yeah.
And if they can contribute to that, they do that. You know, they weren't overbearing. They were never like, here's what you need to do. They were always just so cool to be around. And like I said, we didn't become best friends. We weren't like hanging out all the time. They might not even hear this or know this, but they were very instrumental in shaping the 12 Stones live show because we were young and dumb and competitive. So when we would go play with other bands that we respected, like Seven Dust and Papa Roach and these guys that just like, I've seen Jacoby do some crazy stuff on
Oh yeah.
stage. Like, all right, I gotta be up with that. So
That dude's an animal.
yeah, I mean, I've seen him front flip off the stage into the
Yeah.
thing, beating himself with a microphone. I'm like, oh man, this dude's a psychopath in the best of ways. So you know, like, and still, that's I feel like that's why bands like that, Seven Dust, Papa Roach, are still relevant in so many ways,
Mhm.
not only to the general public but to other artists. Like, they're just so iconic in how they handle themselves and the energy they put forth. I've never seen them have a bad show. You know, that's something they might not agree with. You know, everybody's going to be their own worst critic, but
Yeah.
I've never seen a Papa Roach show where I'm like, they're phoning it in. They're not really feeling it. You know, I've never seen a Seven Dust show where I'm like, they look bored. No, they look like they're about to destroy everyone in their path. So
Yeah. They go out there to put on a show every time.
yes, indeed.
We're getting on to an hour. I don't know how long you want to be on here. But to touch on a little bit more of Potter's Field, I just, what was the song? Why didn't I put Stay on here as one of my talking points? Because I did want to ask you about Stay. It's always sounded like a really personal kind of a song that I always imagined might have been difficult to write and record due to what I feel like it might be about. Do you care to kind of touch on that one a little bit?
Sure. That was one again, you know, this is 21-year-old me, just dealing with raw emotions and realizing that like without a support system, you know, we're just struggle in vain. So that song was always about the people that I always felt had my back. You know, I put everybody in my life through the ringer at times where whether it be my anger issues or maybe just my inability to trust and all the things that I kind of still deal with to this day. It was kind of like, yeah, you're here for me now, but when things really go bad, when I really am at the bottom, are you going to be here? Are you still going to have my back? Like, so it's kind of one of those things where I'm like acknowledging my inadequacies and my shortcomings and my ability to hurt people even indirectly. And it's like,
Right.
yeah, it's nice. We're friends and you got my back when things are going good. But when I hit the bottom, is my phone going to ring? Are you going to be there? Am I going to have to do this alone? So that always had a wall up. I never really let people too close because I'm like, I'm not good. I'm not the greatest. I don't you're going to eventually find a reason to not like me. So I'll just avoid it at all costs. So yeah, that song really was just about when the truth comes out and the reality hits, who's going to be in the corner? You know, who's going to still be willing to say, "I got your back." And
Right.
I was proven wrong by a lot of people, so you know, I'm grateful for that. I've got a
I,
great support system. My family is just phenomenal. So you know, it was definitely a personal touch on that one.
yeah, I mean, it's always been one of my favorites off of the record. I first hearing it, I always kind of, and I guess it is, you could kind of narrow it down to like relationships because friendships are relationships, you know.
Sure.
So, because, uh, you know, I've had people in my life, friends or maybe family in some senses where I felt like they could have had my back when they didn't,
Right.
or maybe they took what I was going through, maybe like not necessarily as a joke, but oh, it's not that serious. It'll blow over,
Right.
kind of thing. So it's a song that I still turn to when I'm feeling kind of down on myself, feeling inadequate because, I have my imperfections too. I struggle with, mental health and stuff like that. And, feeling adequate as a husband and a father.
Sure.
So it's a song I wanted to touch on because it's always kind of helped center me and kind of get me right as far as that kind of stuff goes. So kind of feel like it was about what I kind of felt that it was about.
Sure.
And that helped me so much.
Earlier too is like I want you guys to be able to take from it what it is. And I feel like sometimes if I go too in depth with explanations on songs, someone's like, oh
yeah.
Like I've had songs where I'm like, I know it's about this 100%. And then I hear someone say, oh no, we were just drunk and we wrote this. And then I was like,
you're like, oh.
So yeah, I try to make sure that like, I try to, again, with our writing, I try to be simplistic and direct and just say, hey man, this is what I'm feeling right now. Hopefully it's not forever, but I'm feeling lost, or I'm feeling down, and here's how I'm going to get through it.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of life, right? It's people interpret things. You have your own reasons for why you wrote things or why you do things. So, I mean, that's relatable hearing about that. I'm looking at my clock because it's been about an hour now, and I just want to make sure if I keep going a little bit more, if you're good or not.
Man, I got nowhere to be. I'm home. This is what I do for a living now. So when I get off of here, I'm going to get back on my other stuff and start building the stream up. So no worries, man. I got nowhere to be.
So I would ask about Bitter, because that, like I said, that's like one of my absolute favorite songs from you guys. But I have two other songs from that record that I always listen to a lot, like Photograph and Far Away. And if I remember correctly, wasn't Far Away one of the singles?
Yeah. So the funny thing about those two singles, we released Far Away as a first single off the second record, and we released Photograph as the second single.
Yeah.
At the same exact time we had that album out, this little band called Nickelback had an album out, and their first single was called Photograph.
Look at this photograph.
And their second single was called Far Away. So I'm like,
coincidence?
Here's the situation. I'm not super like, I'm not gonna write one of these Coheed and Cambria song titles, like Battle of the Dragons Beneath the whatever, you know what I mean? I'm like, I say the word photograph in the song a lot, so we're gonna call this one Photograph. We have a song called Eric's Song on the first record. It's because Eric wrote all the music to it. And while we were in pre-production, we never came up with an actual name for it.
So just stuck.
It's Eric's Song. And it's like, so when we did that, we were like, I guess we do need to be more original with naming our songs instead of these 1 and 2 word, generic song titles. But yeah, and we definitely didn't compete with the other band's 2 singles.
Yeah. I mean, all things considered, the Nickelback hate, they're incredible songwriters.
Yeah, people are clowns, man. Yeah, and everybody hates Nickelback except for the 40,000 people a night that show up to the arena tours. I watched it firsthand. I did Us, Nickelback, and Three Doors Down tour for years. Nickelback was blowing up like 40 grand in pyro a night. Every song was a hit, and everybody in the crowd was hitting every note right along with them. So I've never bought that Nickelback hate. I've never in my life. People are so ridiculous, It's like to buy all the toilet paper because somebody next to you did it.
If they suck so bad, why are they still so relevant, and why do their tours just blow up?
People are mad because Chad Kroeger found out the secret. He figured out a way to write hit song after hit song. It's something that most people will never figure out. You want to say it's a cookie cutter, it's this, it's that. No, it ain't. They're out there doing their thing every single night. They got one of the baddest drummers on this planet. I mean, look, I'm happy to laugh in people's face when they start hating on.
You watched that documentary on Netflix, did you, for Nickelback?
I haven't seen it yet. No.
Yeah, it's pretty good stuff.
Honestly, I like the way that they handle it. You know what I mean? They laugh at the fact. They're like, yeah, everybody hates us. That's right. Let me go write this check for a house. Let me go do that.
Like those,
If that's what hate is, look, everybody that's watching this, please hate me. Please
yeah,
hate on
like
me like
those
you hate on
shirts that
Nickelback.
they have.
Yeah.
You've seen those shirts they have that say, "You're either a liar or a fan of the band," right?
Yeah.
So basically, you're a fan even if you say
Right.
you're not.
Yeah, that's 100% the truth,
Brilliant
man.
marketing.
Yeah, that's 100% the truth. Everyone's got an opinion until you're in the crowd, headbanging to Leader of Men. I don't want to hear it.
Yeah, or when Animal comes on, that riff is just hitting your eardrums. Like, how are you not nodding your head to that?
Right. I mean, like I said, Daniel Adair is one of the most gangster drummers on the planet.
Yeah,
he's a better drummer than most metal drummers that I know. But because he's in Nickelback, he doesn't even get a notice. But I'll put Daniel Adair up there with some of the best. You know what I mean? And
I would agree.
He played in Three Doors Down for a while prior to Nickelback. So I mean, yeah, he's a monster. They figured out a cool system to write great songs, and everybody wants to hate on him. But if that's hate me all day long.
Hate me more.
Yeah, please
feel for the songwriting.
Right.
Anthem for the Underdog. This is one of my personal favorite records. The song Adrenaline on there is one of those songs where if I want to amp myself up, I put it on.
Yeah.
Like I was listening to it today, trying to get myself like, okay, get those jitters out. He's a person like I am. You respect him, you look up to him, but he's just a person too, kind of thing. So I was amping myself up, listening to that, and I think it's one of your heavier records. I feel like it's a little. Is it proper to use the word aggressive to describe a 12 Stones record? Because I feel like in some senses it is a little bit more of an aggressive delivery.
Yeah, but that's we always wanted to make a record that we could emulate live, that we could just go from the studio to the stage and do it. That record is the first one that we got to work with Justin Reimer, who ended up joining the band after that process. And Adrenaline was written in its entirety by Justin Reimer. So he wrote all the lyrics, he wrote all the riffs. Eric and I were in Louisiana, and we did this record in Memphis. And Justin called and he's like, all right, y'all are coming up today. I got a song ready for you when you get here. So we drove from New Orleans to Memphis, and we got there, and he was like, get in the booth, try this out. I had the lyrics in front of me. I went in there and just did it. And I was like, man, this is what I like. This is that high energy stuff. And then when we went to actually make the record, I couldn't do a better vocal than I did from the demo. So the actual vocal on Adrenaline, the lead vocal, is the demo recording, because the natural feel for it was just in that moment. And then when I tried to come back and like perfect it and make it good, it didn't. The realness of it wasn't there. It felt a little more forced. And so yeah, that was one of those that like we just ended up using the original first time vocal.
Hey buddy. I am being summoned to get my kiddo Cheerios really quick. Is that all right?
Yeah, for
just
sure.
Give me 1 second.
Yes, indeed.
I have returned. All right.
Speedy.
So yeah, he this kid, since he was able to eat some more solid foods, Cheerios is like his go-to snack. He could go through, heck, if I had to give it a number, 10 plus Cheerio cupfuls of those and just keep eating them. It's like potato chips. You open up the bag and you can't just eat one chip. You gotta just keep eating.
Yeah, I respect that, man. I can get behind that.
So you're talking about Adrenaline, about how the demo vocal take was the take that you guys used, and the other takes that you did maybe kind of felt your sound a little bit forced, and that's where we left off.
Yeah. So it was kind of one of those things where we drove straight to the studio. Justin put me in the booth, and I went in there and I was reading the lyrics as I was learning them. So as I'm singing them, I'm trying to figure out the cadence and all the rhythm. And I think that raw energy and trying to like make it fit worked and ended up being the best takes we could get. And then, a few months go by, we re-record all the guitars and drums and everything. And then they're like, all right, let's go and knock these vocals out. And I went in there, I was like, it's just not as good, man. So Skid Mills, who produced that record, and Justin co-produced it, and they both agreed, and they were like, let's just use the demo, man. It's good. I'm like, so yeah. So what you hear on the album is actually demo vocal, me figuring it out on the fly.
Well, as a whole, that album I feel like has some of your best vocal deliveries on it.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I was working with Justin and Skid. They really helped me understand how to do certain things in the vocal booth. And by the third record, we were a little bit more seasoned in understanding the process. So I was a little more comfortable in that environment, a little bit more comfortable with the constructive criticism as well. Being able to do what's best for the song instead of like, this is how I wrote it in my head. And, but if you maybe try this harmony. And I'm like, I don't know. And then we do it. I'm like, oh, okay. Now I see why you're in the producer's chair. I got you.
Yeah, being open to that feedback or criticism, whatever you call it. A lot of people kind of treat that like it's a negative, hearing that feedback and stuff. But kind of how you start to develop and grow and get better is kind of getting over yourself and the ego and just allowing that to kind of work, what it's supposed to work in you as an individual, because you should. Because you can't really grow if you just stick in one spot and be stubborn, So it's good to be open to that because, that's just another mark of a good producer and stuff as well. Just those people that draw that out of you too, because they know that you have it and they know that you could do it.
Yeah. And Dave Fortman was always good about that. Anytime I would do a bad take, he would have a computer glitch or need to reset something. It was never my fault, and he knew I was a young, fragile ego, young man. And so, I always knew what was happening, but he would be like, oh man, I gotta reset something here. I'm getting a weird hum in here. And then he would just give me a few minutes to collect myself, eat a mint, get a sip of whatever. And then he'd be like, all right, I think I got it. I think we're ready. And then, so it was never, hey man, you're not sounding good today. It was like, this computer is going to be the death of me. Let me get it sorted. And we all knew, like, I'd be looking at the other guys. I'm like, I know it was a bad take. You know, it was a bad take. It helped me. It helped shape me and not feel as like attacked when someone says, hey, so down the road, as we got older and started working with Skid he's a man of few words, but he like, when he speaks, we listen. So, when we're in the studio with Skid, he would be like, man, we're just not getting right where we need to be. And I'm like, and I was able to be like, yeah, all right, I agree. We're not there. Let's keep fighting for it. So
keep working at it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Jake says, I think you've seen it, but he says artists naturally want to be the best. It's who we are. So it's almost like you have to learn to fight against your own nature to grow.
Yeah, that's perfectly worded. That's the thing is like everyone says we're all our own worst critic, and it's like, but sometimes when we call it demoitis, right? So like if I write a song on an acoustic, I hear it some certain way, and then somebody else in the band hears it a little bit different, and I can't let go of what it was, but that might not be what's in the best interest of the song. So once we're able to just go, okay, look, you're not battling me. We're battling against the odds of making this the best song it can be, whether that's changing the guitar, changing the whole lyric, changing everything, then that's what it has to do. And I was very fortunate to work with producers along the years that understood that and how to get their best version of me in the booth and any other guys that were playing on the record as well.
Of those first three records, which one or was any one of them more difficult or less difficult or just easier to just get completed of those first three?
Anthem for the Underdog was the biggest challenge out of those three, only because we were opening ourselves up to more stuff. Like that was the first record where we had legitimate string sections come in. We had Joey Walzer from Devour the Day. Now he plays with Pop Evil. He came and laid some bass tracks down. So we really we took it out of the immediate circle of the 5 of us, and we were like, okay, let's make this whole team work together. And Justin Reimer writes some amazing songs. He was in the band Breaking Point before. It was
Good band.
Also a wind-up band, and that's how I got the gig with him. Is that I was out. The record label at one point was trying to get me to become a solo artist, and I was like, no, I'm not doing that.
We tried that with Chester too, with Warner Bros.
They try it with everybody. they think, hey, that's mouths to feed. If we can just focus on one, it's always a business decision, it seems. But so I was out doing a whole bunch of writing assignments. I went from LA. I was in LA for weeks and stuff like that, and so then when it turned out that I was going to go write, I got a call and they're like, hey, would you go write with this guy, Justin Reimer? He was in Breaking Point. I'm like, yeah, for sure. I went and worked with Justin, and the first day we wrote 2 songs. We wrote It Was You, and I forget the other one, but they were just instant. And I was like, man, we're firing on all cylinders. So then I got the rest of the guys to come up to Memphis, and we collabed. And I talked Justin into, I'm like, you're not old enough to just be a producer yet, man. Don't you want to play live still? Don't you still have that fire? So we talked him out of, once he finished co-producing the record, I'm like, you wrote so much of it, man. You gotta deliver. So he joined the band and became our second guitar player for several years. And what a blessing to have a guy like that in your band and in your life.
Incredible.
Yeah, still a great human being. Yeah. Love him to death. He's one of the good ones for sure. So,
before we move on from Anthem for the Underdog, I brushed up on like info and my knowledge for 12 Stones a little bit before we because you age, some things kind of get fuzzy, you forget. Anthem for the Underdog. I jumbled that title. Anthem for the Underdog.
No worries.
Hurricane Katrina, right? I saw something about a hurricane attached to the record, like something about the process of it. Wikipedia might be wrong. I'm not real sure. Let me pull it up so I don't confuse you too much. Wikipedia asking me for money again.
Yeah, man. Donate. Donate.
Collapse. Okay, so history. Well, it's not wanting to come up where I read it. But anyway, it was something about a hurricane when you guys went to record the process, and I don't know if it rings any bells with you. We could always move on from it too. But
I mean, honestly, I've always said this. We've had a front row seat to every national disaster since the year we got signed. We actually flew into New York City on September 10th, the night of September 10th.
Dude.
So I woke up in New York on September 11th, and we were just up there to have a meeting. And so then we had to get on a train in Penn Station and take a train from New York all the way to Louisiana. They obviously had grounded all flights. Everyone was panicking. It's the only time I've ever been in New York where I couldn't hear anything. No honking, no yelling. It was just silence. And obviously, what a historically tragic day in American history. And then a few years later, we were in New Orleans we live in New Orleans, just north of New Orleans, in the suburb, and Katrina came through. And I was like, man, everywhere we go, it seems to follow us. So, it's been an eye-opening experience to have those moments where you're just like, it really puts reality back in front of you and go, okay, like the real world's still going on out there, and there's still a lot of threats, a lot of things that could do harm to so many people. So many people that worked in the World Trade Center got up to go to work just like any other day, and so it's such a tragic moment. But yeah, I do believe
I was in the 8th grade when that happened, by the way, for that. And I remember my teacher telling the class to quiet down, and she said, look at the TV, and she turns on the TV, and they were talking about it. And I'm just sitting there just frozen in place listening to this. And I'm just like, I kind of want to go home now, you know?
Yeah, we had a friend.
It
So
just,
we were in a hotel, and I got woken up to my hotel phone ringing, which was weird because I didn't give
right,
anybody the number. But the cell towers in New York were on top of the World Trade Center, so all cell phones quit working for that immediate time. So I was woken up by a friend going, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "You woke me up, man." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm good. What's up?" And he's like, "Turn on your TV." And I did. And I turned on the TV just in time to see the second plane come in. And I looked out my hotel window and I could see the plume of smoke off in the distance. And I was still half asleep. I'm on the phone with one of my best friends and he's like, "Are you good? Are you good?" I'm like, "I don't know, man. I don't know what to do. I don't know." We all had our own rooms. So we got the guys together
right.
and then it was immediately like, get the band out of town, do whatever we got to do. And they got us on a train and we spent 3 days on a train going back home. And it was one of the wildest experiences. It definitely shaped our thoughts and our way of like approaching life. And it brought a lot more meaning to saying my dad always says, every day above ground's a good day. And
Yeah.
I try not to take anything for granted after being there and feeling such loss for so many people. It was such a heavy, heavy time.
Yeah, I mean, each day you have is a blessing. It's why I try not to hold on to grudges with friends or family, you know, because at the end of the day, is it really worth the anger and the resentment and the disdain and all that? Because we're only here for a period of time and you never know. I could walk out my door after we get done with this and something happen. You just never know.
Yeah.
So for me, things like that, when they happen, are very sobering and they kind of
Agreed.
make you slow down because I believe the world did stop when that happened. Everybody just kind of took stock, you know, called loved ones, friends, and just checked in on each other and they were there for each other. I felt like the world came together, you know, when that was going on. So, I mean, probably why I brought up the whole anthem for the underdog thing and reading about the thing about Hurricane Katrina and all that is just things like that, just kind of, like I said, they sober you. So
Exactly.
that's crazy that you were actually in the city when that took place. I mean,
Yeah,
that's
I mean, we
you
flew in
guys.
just a few hours before. I mean, not that the flight we would have been on the same flight. They didn't come from New Orleans, but it's horrifying to when it actually start to realize what happened. You see the first one, you think it's pilot error, an accident, something. You see the second one, it's like, what's happening? Like, what's happening?
Yeah,
And you can't fathom that level of hatred or
yeah,
animosity. I still can't fathom, what goes into that type of, thing.
yeah. Same. To bring more of a positive or a funny kind of spin back to it, Jacob, he's in the band Labor 12.
Very nice.
He's the lead guitarist. Amazing band, by the way. Really cool guys. He was telling his best friend last night that you were the reason why 8-year-old Jacob wanted frosted tips.
Hey, yes, indeed, man.
And then before that, he said 12 Stones was one of his first loves.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank
Yeah,
you so much, Jacob. I'll definitely be checking you guys out. Thanks
yeah,
for the kind words. That's very nice.
yeah. Incredible band, those guys. Great people. So shifting gears, obviously you guys ended up leaving Wind Up after, you know, several records with them. We could get into that if you want to, or we could kind of get into like the EP and then the more serious tone of the interview where I want to bring up, you know, other things you've touched on in other interviews.
Sure.
So it could be dealer's choice. Do you want to touch on the Wind Up stuff or?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's pretty quick. With Wind Up, I think our time was up. We did 3.5 albums or 3 albums and an EP with them. On the EP, there was already some rumblings within the label that it was going to go a different direction just as a label.
Right.
And so we didn't get a full album out of it with the Only Easy Day Was Yesterday. They allowed us to do those songs and that was kind of it. And then we realized in that moment that like we were always like the little brother on that label, you know, like, and a lot of people don't know how it works, but when you release a single to radio, there's only so many songs that a radio station will add to their playlist at any given time.
Right.
Every time we released a new single, Seether released a new single, or every time we released a new single, Drowning Pool was releasing.
That's competition, man.
And it wasn't like animosity. It was just the business of it, and we didn't have the fan base that either of those bands had, and we're already battling all the other bands that are coming out at that time. So we always kind of got the back seat. So we kind of felt like we had fallen well off the totem pole of Wind Up about the time we did that EP. And so it was in everybody's best interest that we moved on, and then there's no love lost. I mean, there's no hatred there. Diana really quit being involved with the label, and she was the saving grace for us anyway. Yeah. So we kept our relationship with her and just left. And we honestly we kind of thought that was going to be it. We thought like, all right, well, we had our run. That's going to be it. And
well, thank goodness it wasn't it.
You're right.
Because some incredible music came later on with, you know, Beneath the Scars and, you know, Picture Perfect. Like I said earlier, like your guys' output has always been super quality, super consistent. I've never had any real complaints necessarily about it, other than maybe wishing I wish that one was a little bit heavier, or I wish that one had more of an acoustic part in it, or piano here kind of stuff, you know, just things like that. So, I mean, it sounds like, you know, leaving Wind Up in whatever way it was for the better, and it was the right decision for you guys. Cause, in my opinion, 2 great records came from that. Yeah. You know, and I heard a lot of growth on those records, and some of your best songs are on those records too, in my personal opinion. So,
yeah, and again, I have nothing but love for them. They're the ones that gave us a chance, and you know, without Diana Meltzer, I wouldn't be sitting here having this conversation with you today. Yeah. So,
gotta be grateful.
Lots of love and appreciation for the chances we were given, and the fact that there was no fight to be done. It was like it was a mutual breakup. You know, it was one of those things where like, we don't have the same vision anymore. So they let us take our stuff and head on home.
Yeah. I mean, if there's no animosity, you know, or anything like that, because a lot of people will draw that conclusion that that's how it was. Like, oh, band leaves a label and they automatically think, oh, the label kicked them off, you know, from the outside looking in. It's not always bitterness or, you know, ugly. Sometimes it's just the decision the band wanted, and the label said, okay, sure, you know, and you know, rest is history kind of thing.
Yep.
So Smoke and Mirrors was 2020. I think that's an incredible batch of songs. I feel like it's some of the heaviest stuff you guys have put out. Like I listened to Sever, and like I think it's got just this thick, you know, kind of like atmosphere to it. You know, it's my favorite song on that EP. And I've been sitting on just hopes and waiting for when the next stuff comes out, right? Because you guys put out Kiss from a Rose, which my friend's dad, Rich, that I mentioned earlier that introduced me to you guys, said that he was not expecting the direction that you guys went when you covered that track.
Right.
He says it's an awesome cover.
Thank you. When we try to do that song, we had a bunch of other covers in mind that we were going to try, but I think it was Aaron, our drummer, mentioned that, and I was like, I don't know if I can sing that. And then we just went in and did it, and I still love it. I think it's a fun take on the classic song.
I loved hearing it heavier, you know, with that kind of like attitude with it, and you sing it really well too, man. Like you've always had pipes, you know. They're grungy pipes, you know. They're kind of like that alternative kind of harder rock. I don't know if you guys have ever been pegged nu metal. I've never thought you were nu metal.
No, I don't rap enough for that.
and your jeans weren't baggy enough either, I guess.
Well, Kevin had some pretty baggy jinkos. That dude, you couldn't see his shoes under those jeans, and then big red baggy pants.
Yeah. So I'm shifting into the two topics. I mean, I'm a little nervous asking about, but you said you're good and you're transparent and you're an open book. So
Yeah.
first of all, I just want to preface this with saying that it's always so amazing to see people that overcome, addictions and hold on to their sobriety and are advocates for people that are struggling for that, or not struggling for that, but struggling from it. You've had your own struggles with, sobriety and stuff like that. And you've been open about mental health on your pages. And I just want to ask you, what could you say to the people that struggle with the mental health and the addictions that might help them get on a better path towards being happier about themselves and being able to deal with what they struggle with? Because you never know, your experience with it and what helped you might help them.
Sure. Yeah. For me, it was I had to just realize what it was doing to me. On the double-edged sword that is this industry is that I got to tour, I got to play live with my best friends every night, but I also got free booze and anything else under the sun. People would say, "Oh man, great show. Let me buy you a shot," and then I feel not a sense of obligation, but a, like, "Oh, that's nice. You drove. You bought money for a ticket. You got here early. You watched the show.
Don't
Now,
want to say no, kind of thing.
yeah." So it's kind of like, but then it became there's 10 more people lined up behind them that were like, "Yeah, well, can I do a shot with you? Can we do?" And then it turned into like I'm drinking a gallon of vodka a day, and
Right.
anything else that was put in front of me at that point was just like, let's go. I'm a maniac, and the thing is, I allowed the character that I created for the live shows, because people that would come to a live show back in the day, my eyes are rolling back in my head. I'm throwing the horns up.
Right.
I'm trying to leave everything on the stage. I'm trying to engage with the crowd and bring that energy in. But me as a person, I'm not that person. Like, especially now that I'm sober, like my social anxiety is through the roof. I don't leave my house a lot of times, even still, because I don't function well in big groups of people. And I didn't realize how much I was using drugs and alcohol and all these things to alleviate that pressure. And so that version of me, the on stage character version of me, became dependent upon that. And it became
Right.
I don't remember doing a show without it, and then it was like, okay, well, and then when I would come home from tour, my body still craved the drinks, and it was like I would just be a waste case. And it wasn't until about a little over 7 years ago that I just had some eye-opening situations that happened to me that made me realize, like, man, who are you? And I had a really, really rough night, and I came home, and my now fiance, girlfriend at the time, I came home and yelled at her about everything that wasn't her fault. And then I started crying, and then I started hyperventilating, and I had the worst panic attack I've ever had in my life. I thought I was having a heart attack. And I thought it was in. And I woke up the next day, and I'm like, that can't happen again. I can't handle any more of that. So I haven't had a sip of alcohol. Haven't done anything since that day. I've been a little over 7 years now, and it's not easy because I spent most of my adult life being two different people
Right.
to everyone. So my mom and dad would come to shows, and I would hide my booze. Like, my mom's never had a sip of alcohol, never had a cigarette. My dad's a retired DEA agent, so like, he was a cop when I was born. And like, I just grew up with such a great support system that I just felt so horrible about the things I was doing, the person I had become, that I thought I could hide it. But my mom,
Right.
now we laugh about it. She's like, we know you were hammered at every show we came to, because you would say, "Hey, everybody, show some love. My mom and dad are in the building." And she said, "Didn't you do like another song and be like, what's up? Hey, everybody, make some noise. My mom and dad are here." She's like, "You introduced us like 6 times, but you were drinking out of a Gatorade bottle. It was vodka Red Bull, but I put it in a Gatorade bottle." And I'm like, they'll never know.
Yeah.
So it turned me into something and someone that I didn't recognize anymore. And the hardest part for me about getting sober is relearning who I was. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Everything I did that brought me enjoyment in life was centered around drinking and partying and like being the class clown and being the one. Everything was for a laugh. Everything was for a smile. Because if you're laughing and you're smiling in my presence, then there can be nothing wrong with that. I'm not hurting anybody. I mean, but in reality, I definitely was. So I still struggle to this day with realizing things that I enjoy and things that I like. And luckily, recently I started doing some painting, as you can see behind me, and
Yeah.
it's a very therapeutic thing for me. And people have been very receptive and very supportive of that. So I've just had to find different things. Like I used to love playing golf, but I realized I love playing golf because I drink a bottle of vodka on the golf course with my
Yeah.
boys. It was never about golf. It was never about the actual activity. It was any day that ends in Y. There's always an excuse for a party, and it became, I'm a competitive person. So it was like, no one's going to outdrink me. And
Mm-hmm.
I'd have people come to shows and be like, I'm going to put you under the table tonight. I'm like, okay, mount up. I'm going to show you how we do this. And it shaped me becoming someone that I didn't ever envision becoming. But now in hindsight, I'm grateful for seeing that side of myself to now know where to put my back,
Right.
put that in the rear view and take those experiences. And it was only recently, maybe like 6 months, 8 months ago, that I had this just epiphany that just popped up to me. And I realized that like my memories of certain situations are just my memories of those situations.
Mm-hmm.
People that were in those situations with me probably have a very different outlook of that same situation. Whereas I was obliterated and being funny and, running through a bar with my pants, around my ankles, trying to get a laugh out of somebody, just embarrassing myself.
Right.
Other people, like I hear stories later and I'm like telling my side of the story, how it was in my head. And they're like, that's not at all. You look like an idiot. You were doing this. Like my fiance still to this day will remind me of certain things. I'm like, I did that. Oh man. Yep. I did that. So it's like, it gives me a reason to not go in that direction. And not, I still have plenty of friends that drink and party. And it honestly, seeing that helps me stay on the straight and narrow. I'm like, man, you look like you're going to feel terrible tomorrow. Or like see somebody hungover and I'm like, I won't have to worry about that ever again, So I'm still learning every day. And I guess the reason I've become more of an advocate for mental health is only recently I started going to doctors and trying to start figuring out, because I've always been the type of person that I can fix it. I'll figure it out. It's just I'm doing something wrong. It was never about my inability to fix the situation in my head. And so as time's gone on, I was like, I don't want to be taking medication. I don't want to do any of this, but I'm not allowed to drive a car right now because my road rage, and it's like, I just don't go, because I have this in my mind, this bar, the right and wrong, like if you're driving in a car and you cut me off and you don't use a blinker, I have this like vigilante mindset where I'm like, everybody else has to use a blinker. You have to use a blinker, and then it's like,
I'm guilty of being like that with people that don't. Yeah.
So, and it's like, but my triggers aren't anybody else's responsibility. And that's a tough lesson to learn. Right. So like, instead of me going out and getting triggered by every single person that I think is doing something the wrong way or not the way it should be done, I just avoid the situation until I can look inward and go, right. But did it take all of that? Like when I drive to the gym in the mornings, I have to literally tell myself, like, it's a 5-minute drive. Just keep your hands on the steering wheel. My fiance laughs at me whenever I'm driving. I'm always like, she's like, your hands go up so much because you're just like, what are you doing? What are you doing? And it's true. And I'm in here. I'm piloting the ship, but I'm not in control of it sometimes. So I realize that like, I'm still super, super angry and I'm super depressed and super anxious all the time. And I'm trying to understand that. And I don't want that to be anybody else's responsibility. You know, I've got to be able to not let these things bother me, or I have to, you know, just avoid the situation altogether. And I'm slowly getting back and around and being able to get back out in public and stuff. I live in a very small town, so you know it's harder, and people don't understand this because it comes across as like arrogance to some people, but like a lot of people around here claim that we know each other, we're buddies, and like it's not that I'm not, but I'm like I don't ever go anywhere. So when I do go out, someone's like, "Oh, hey," and I've been in Walmart before, you know, handful of stuff, and be like, "Oh, hey, what's up?" And they want to talk about, and it's so nice, and they're not wrong for anything, but my anxiety kicks in so bad, and I'm like, this is why I don't leave the house. I just need to go home.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it's not because they're being rude or anything. They're just wanting to make conversation, and it cripples me. I'm just like, oh, yep. Sounds good, man. I hope everything's good. And I'm like to the door. So I'm still figuring out those ways, but I've been fortunate enough to find a doctor that's helping get some medication regulated, and realizing that sometimes we even need help. You know, with the sobriety thing, I just quit, and I was like, nothing to it. I'm stubborn. I have a hard head. If I put my mind to something, I'm going to do it. And at first it was difficult, but then it was just like, now I just want to see how long I can go without, you know, going back. And I'm permanently set on that setting now. I'm happy. I feel better every day knowing that I'm making the right decisions. You know, I had a health scare. I had melanoma.
Yeah, I remember reading
so
that.
had that removed, and then I had a 65-gram growth in the back of my neck. It gave me like this hunchback feel. So my self-conscious was just destroyed. I didn't want to be seen, you know? So I've been getting everything worked on, taken care of, and just trying to really be transparent and let everybody out there know, like, whatever it is you're going through, you're not the first one. You won't be the last one.
Exactly.
But if you're open to other people's experiences, it might help you. It might not. When I was getting sober, I tried to go to meetings. It wasn't for me. It didn't have the same effect that it had for other people. So I took a different path when finding sobriety. I'm taking a pretty common path with the mental health. We're just trying things until we find what works. And little by little, I feel like I'm finding a little bit more clarity and a little bit more motivation. Whereas I sit on the couch and chronically overthink the 800 million things I need to do today, this week, 5 months from now, and I don't move. I get paralyzed. I get stuck in between my ears going, oh man, you got to do this. You got to do this. People want this. And oh man, but I'm kind of a one-man army right now. I do the live streams, you know, I manage the website. I manage all the socials. I do interviews. All the things that I try to do. I'm only one person. So it's like, I try to give myself a little bit more credit on the days where I just don't feel like moving. I allow that to be okay and not be like, oh, you're an idiot, man. You know, you should have done this. You should have done that. So yeah, I'm kind of learning as I go, and it's helpful to share those experiences with other people. It makes me feel not alone. And I hope that translates to the people that are hearing this, that, man, it is, you do feel alone. You do feel in a dark place where nobody can understand. Like I tell my fiance all the time, like, I just wish for 5 minutes you could see what's actually happening in my head. I'll have 100 different conversations happening at once. She'll be talking to me and I don't hear a word she's saying. And I'll start the conversation. I'll ask where you want to go eat. And then this starts going off and she'll name a couple places. I'm like, what are you talking about? She's like, you just asked me a question. I'm like, no, me. So it is a struggle. And you know, being able to allow other people to help, the ones that are willing to help and able, dropping that guard has been very crucial for me, finding relief and understanding that, like, man, no matter what, we're all human beings. We're created to feel. We're higher up in the evolution because we have feelings, because we have empathy, or we don't, you know. So trying to really take a step out of myself and go, well, what's really wrong? I don't have any severe traumas in my life, necessarily. I have a great support system. I got cool friends, I felt guilty about feeling so terrible. I'm like, man, other people, you know, probably killed to have 6.5 records and a 20 plus year music career and all these
Right.
things. And it was like, I felt like I was making a mockery of all the good feelings because I couldn't get out of my head. I felt guilty for feeling bad. I'm like, I don't have a thing that happened where I'm like, I can point to this one thing and that's what really messed me up. And it's like, no, man, like suck it up, rub some dirt on it, get back out there, get on the horse, all the little analogies. And, when you start opening up about it, everybody wants to say like, it's just in here, man. You just got to believe. And it's like, you don't know anything about what I'm feeling right now. So don't try to come in here and act like you know me and fix me. I'm not in need of your fixation. I need you to make things right for me. And once I was able to really just get outside of myself and try to see the bigger picture, it's really helped me realize that, like, man, we're all human. We all feel, and we're all only here for a short time. Nothing's promised. And if I spend every minute of my day sitting on the couch, living out scenarios that may never happen, then I'm wasting the opportunities that I've been given in life. And so I just have to really force myself some days to get up. Like when I go to the gym, it has to be the first thing I do, or I'm not going to do it. So I have to go to the gym, put the headphones in, blast the metal, and do what I do. And then I can come home and I feel like, all right, I've at least done that one thing that I have to do. I've never got a runner's high. I've never embraced the gym. I hate it. I hate every second of it. It's never been a thing for me, but I feel better mentally when I come home from the gym and I'm like, okay, I did one thing I didn't want to do already. And so now anything that comes up, it'll be stuff I want to do, like with the interviews and doing the handwritten lyrics and the paintings. And like now I can focus on things that truly I think bring me happiness because I already did the name.
Peace, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, hey, buddy. Oh, he ran away. No, so that's everything you were saying about the mental health struggles and what you've been doing to manage it, better yourself, become the person you want to be, not for just yourself, but for your family and everything. That's why I wanted to bring it up, is because aside from the music thing, because it's a music focused podcast, I want to talk to musicians that I respect, I look up to, I listen to their music and just express my gratitude and all that. But mental health is also a part of why I do it. And because I at least want to bring it up at some point in an interview, just so it's talked about, because I feel like it needs to be talked about, because like you were saying, it's hard to kind of get outside of yourself and open yourself up to admitting that, okay, I need to do this for me, even though it puts you on the spot, kind of, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because that's like one of the first steps you take is admitting it, and so I just want to say, from one person that struggles with mental health to another that, not knowing you, like what your family would know, your close friends would know you, but knowing the struggle, you're doing great, man. I think you're doing everything that you should to better yourself and get a handle on that. It's so awesome to hear about your sobriety and staying on that horse and staying the course. That's not easy.
Right.
I gave up the drink myself, years and years ago. I didn't. My dad was a horrible alcoholic, and I started to fall into that. And I had a point where it was pointed out to me, and I'm like, okay, I'm just done, So, yeah, just one person to another, man. It's awesome to hear that. Congratulations on sobriety. Congratulations on being able to talk about your mental health, even though it's not comfortable a lot of the time.
Well, I think that's the part of it, being not comfortable with it, especially for men.
Yeah.
And they're supposed to be, the strong, nothing gets to me. I'm the big tough guy. I'm not emotional. My fiance and I talk about it all the time. Men are much more emotional than women in a lot of scenarios. We're the babies when we get sick. We're the ones that like lash out.
I could cry at the drop of a hat.
Yeah. I mean, anger is really my only emotion that I portrayed a lot of times. Like if I was sad, I'd be like, "Oh, you don't understand me." And it was like everything comes off as anger because that's me being able to be like, "Oh, I'm in charge. Get away from me. I'm mean." And really, I'm just shielding the fear and the sadness and the depression and those things. So being able to like open up about it and explain to people like, we're not always gonna be our best selves. So, we got to acknowledge it and try to rectify it.
Exactly. And starting to wrap this up, that for people that are going to watch back or that have been watching, I want to empower you and encourage you. If you're going through something, I know it's hard to open up and talk, but please talk, because I want you here. Your family wants you here. We want to see you succeed, and we want to see you healthy, mentally, physically, and being able to be happy and proud of who you are. So
yes, indeed.
Yeah. So to wrap this up, I want to ask, what's next for 12 Stones? What could we expect?
I'm just always writing and trying to be my best self.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just gonna try to get back out there and play some shows and stay busy.
Well, I hope you could come to Oregon, because like I posted on can't remember who I responded to about it, band, and I mentioned you guys, 12 Stones. Never seen you guys live. I hope I get to.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, I know Oregon's far away from where you're based, but
we're trying to make something happen.
Yeah, I will be there if it does.
All right,
and looking forward to any new music too. By the way, always want new music. And then I have a fun little thing I stole from a buddy that does a podcast. He asked his guests the same thing. A lot of bands don't expect the question.
Can you give me 1 second?
Yeah. Doing good, bud? You still in here, Jake? I've never had Jinko jeans. Tried to dye my hair blonde one time, turned orange. It's horrible. I wondered if you would be. How are the viewers enjoying the 12 Stones chat with Paul so far? Seen you guys coming in and out of here. Orange Dave Mustaine hair. Ooh. I guess I think that was kind of the color I had when I tried to go blonde, and it but a little bit darker. Just talking about hair dye, you're good.
Right on.
Yeah. What I was going to ask you, for 12 Stones, if you had to describe the band as a food or a beverage, what might you pick?
Let's see. I would say as a beverage, I might give you a Red Bull.
Okay.
Because we try to bring the energy, we try to always, in our live show is always to leave everything out on the stage, and whether we're, puking or passing out, our goal is to take all the energy from all the experiences in life and turn it into the story. So yeah, maybe an energy drink.
That's actually a common response I've gotten from a lot of bands.
Really?
They'll mention Red Bull or Monster or something like that, because like the live show, like you're just saying. But yeah, man, just in closing, I just want to say thank you so much again for your time coming on, being an open book with 12 Stones and your struggles, sobriety, your mental health, and everything. This has been, in a lot of ways, a dream come true for me, because I think back to when I seen your guys' videos on YouTube when it was fresh and new, and on MTV when they still played music videos and everything, and just always just wanted to talk to you and just talk to the band in general. So this has been a really neat and special and important kind of milestone episode for me. So again, thank you so much for coming on. It's been such a blast.
My pleasure, man. Thank you for taking the time to sit here and chat with me. I appreciate you, trying to shed some light on mental health and struggles that we all go through. So I think that's definitely a very cool thing to be doing. And it's been my absolute pleasure to be here hanging out with you today.
Yeah, thank you. And I love hearing that. Before we go offline here and wrap this up, anything else you might want to say to the fans that'll watch?
Yeah. So I mentioned a little bit earlier, but I have been doing some paintings. I have those available. You can email me at 12stonesbusiness@gmail.com to ask about any of the paintings you see behind me. I also do custom handwritten 12 Stones lyrics. And they can go through our website, 12stones.com, to check that out, as well as these
Please do,
shirts.
folks.
I got some new shirts and stuff. So we're doing a whole lot of stuff. So any and all that support is greatly appreciated. And right now, till the end of the month, the end of November, if you buy handwritten lyrics or a painting from me, you get entered into a drawing to win a painting of your choice. Whatever I have on the last day, I'm going to have a whole bunch back here, and whatever is available, the winner will be announced live and gets to pick whichever painting they want, and it'll come right to you. So
heck yeah, I hope people get in on that and participate. I love seeing the artwork. I've been looking at the lyric sheets myself and waiting for the holiday paychecks to get one myself. So
I know that's right.
Yeah.
No worries.
So I'm going to let you go, man. Again, thank you for coming on. It's been a pleasure. This will be up on Facebook, and hopefully it'll give me the option to download from my Facebook page. It doesn't always for some reason, and then it'll be uploaded onto YouTube. So yeah.
Cool. Well, I'll try to be able to share it on our page as well, if that's a possibility.
Yes, absolutely will be a possibility, and thank you for doing that. You take care,
You as well.
and we'll be in touch.
All right, brother. Thank you so much.